Okay, so I bought this Thule VeloCompact 927 bike rack. One thing I noticed is that this vertical bar, which needs to be connected, needs to be connected with the two. Hold on, I'm trying to do this with my hands full. Okay, so I've reconnected it with these. There's a bolt goes through here and a tightening knob on this side, and a bolt through here and a tightening knob on that side. And obviously this is permitted to, okay, I'll just loosen those off. Get my fingers out of the camera. That tips forward for storage and for for when you're carrying it and moving it around. So that just simply tips up. Now it's quite a tight fit. These bars are quite a tight fit within these two uprights. And what I've noticed, and I've been looking at a few videos online, is that most people put that up into the vertical position and then they lock up these two nuts and they think that's the job done. And actually it's not. Depending on the bike that you have, I've got two electric bikes. They're quite heavy, even though this is a 3-bike rack. And what I noticed on my first journey out was that this started, under the weight of the bikes, it started to move forward. So you can see it's dropping down slightly. And of course, as it moved forward, then the bikes started to lie slightly backwards, which wasn't ideal. So one thing I noticed when I was buying it in the shop, the guy was explaining to me that this comes up to the upright position. And you'll see here that there's a circular recess down there for that tube to fit into, and that tube to fit into. And on the side, those bolts are in vertical slots. The idea being that when you get up to the upright position, you then slide that down into position. Now, unless you're a bodybuilder, it's very hard. If you couldn't see that off camera, I've used a rubber mallet and I've knocked that down into position. And now these bolts have moved slightly down in their slot, which they're designed to do. And the tubes of the frame have sat into the circular recesses. Then you tighten up the knobs and that ain't going anywhere, which is, I think, how it's designed to operate. However, when you get to your destination and you get home again and you take your bicycles off and you loosen off the two bolts like so, and you want to lie that down flat, you can't, because to get them back out of there, again, it needs a bit of persuasion. Once you've done it and you've pulled the tubes back out of the recesses, it will tip forward for storage, which is fantastic. However, if anybody from Thule is watching this, I'm a little bit aggrieved by the fact that the fit between the tube and that in there is so tight that it's nearly impossible to slide them down easily by hand, and certainly not to be able to do it on site when you arrive to your destination. What I'm going to do, and I know it's going to avoid warranty and all sorts of other things, but I'm actually going to file down the side of that slightly so that it's a slightly looser fit and it allows for an up and down movement without having to use a mallet or without having to be a bodybuilder. So that's what I'm going to do. I did notice, by the way, on any of the videos I watched, that people were putting this up into the vertical position, tightening the two knobs, and happily using the carrier. And probably with a light bicycle it wouldn't matter, but with the heavy bicycles in transit, depending on the road, that will actually or can move forward, and that can cause you problems with your bikes. I did see when I bought it in the store, the guy tried to explain to me on the demo model that you loosen these and you slide this up or you slide it down, and actually he wasn't able to do it because he had the very same problem. The tubes wouldn't slide, they're too tight, and the friction between them and these uprights was such that he couldn't do it. And he very quickly brushed over the fact that he couldn't, and he told me something else about the carrier. So really, it's probably not great. And if Thule are watching this, they need to look at this and how they can make it so that there's less friction there, and that will slide easily as it's designed to do in these slots. So I'm going to void my warranty by filing that down slightly. I'm going to try it again, and I'll show you if it works or if I've just cost myself €500. Okay, so I did that. I took a cordless angle grinder with a flap disc on it, and you can see the plastic in the fins of the flap disc. I just went in there and I slightly filed or cleaned the inside of that channel. Those of you in the health and safety industry will notice straight away that I have taken the guard off the grinder, which is an absolute mortal sin. I don't recommend anybody does that. However, with the guard on the grinder, it wouldn't fit in. And I'm only grinding plastic, and I was wearing gloves and glasses, and it's not my first time to use a grinder. However, it is not recommended to use it without the guard. So what I have now is the vertical bar is lying down. So as it comes up, it slots into position. So you can see there that the tube is above the hole, and the same on that side. And then with a small tap to the top, they drop down into their positions. Once they're in position, tighten up the knobs. You'll notice at this point that the bolts have traveled down the slot as they're supposed to do. And when they're tightened, that's not going to come back up, and that's not going to move forward, and it's not going to damage your bikes in transit. And it's really not clear in the instructions, where it shows you about this. I mean, it does sort of say, right, it has to go down, but it's not really. I mean, this is saying it's important here that the tube slots down into the circular section, but it's really not that clear, and Thule should make that more clear, because any videos that I saw of people assembling these on YouTube, none of them seemed to be aware of this, and that could move forward and could damage your bike. Depending on the value of your bike, the bike might be an awful lot more expensive than the carrier, and as is the case with me, so I want it to work safely. So now when I want to store it, I loosen off these knobs again, like so. And now to get these up out of there, I again have to just put my hand to the bottom, give that a bit of a thump, and you can see that has come up out of its circular position at the bottom. The bolt has travelled up on the slot, and the bar will drop down forward. I really think Thule need to look at that. They either need to make it clearer in their instructions, or they need to make the fitting between the tube and the holder a better fit. It's really not a good fit. Thanks. I hope this helps you, and maybe it's after saving your bike.